The scent of salt water clung to the air at Harborview Marina, where the setting sun painted gold across the polished hulls of million-dollar yachts. Music thumped from the deck of the Larkspur, the crown jewel of the harbor, sleek, pristine, and unmistakably expensive. The party had begun hours ago, and the energy was just hitting its stride. Champagne flowed like a waterfall, laughter erupted in sharp bursts, and designer sunglasses masked glassy eyes already dulled from indulgence. Waitstaff in crisp uniforms moved briskly among the elite guests, refilling glasses, delivering oysters, brushing crumbs from teak tables. But on the docks below, where the light didn't reach quite so warmly, Elijah Carter worked in silence. He crouched beside a smaller sailboat, cloth in hand, scrubbing the chrome fittings until they caught the light like diamonds. His hands were calloused, strong, precise. Every motion was deliberate, the rhythm of someone used to fixing what others had broken. He was dressed in dark coveralls, a navy cap pulled low over his brow. To most of the partygoers above, he didn't exist. Just another Dockhand, just part of the background. But he saw everything, every detail, every whisper. On the Larkspur's upper deck, Preston Lock clinked his glass against a bottle of Dom Perignon, soaking in the attention like a man who convinced himself he earned it. He wore a blinding white blazer, open at the chest, a gold medallion winking from the dark hair peeking out. His voice carried easily above the music. "She's leaking again," he declared with mock tragedy, one hand flung toward the edge of the yacht like a theater actor in a death scene. Thousands on engineers, diagnostics, underwater drones, and she still takes on water like a drunken sailor. Can you believe it? A ripple of laughter from his guests followed. "They say it's a pressure seal failure," a guest chimed in, sloshing. Wine as he spoke, "You can't trust anyone these days. Overpaid technicians, underdelivered results." Preston threw his head back. "I swear, if one of these dockhands could fix it, I'd hand them the damn yacht." His voice rang out across the marina. A beat of silence followed, then soft chuckles. Someone raised their phone and began filming, sensing the kind of ridiculous moment that gets shared and reshared on social media. Elijah didn't look up, not right away. He stood slowly, setting his cloth aside, and turned his head just enough to catch Preston's gaze. They locked eyes for a second, a heartbeat. Then Elijah spoke, calm and unhurried, his voice cutting clean through the din. "I'll take a look." The dock fell still. Preston blinked, his grin faltering. "You serious?" He scoffed, waving his glass lazily. "Come on, man. It's a joke. Lighten up." But Elijah was already walking boots steady on the dock, posture straight. Not aggressive, not deferential, just steady. He reached the gangplank, paused for a moment, then stepped aboard. Every camera phone swung toward him now. "You heard what I said, right?" Preston called, trying to laugh it off, trying to get back in control. "I said I'd give you the yacht if you stopped the leak." Elijah stopped mid-step and turned back to him. There was no anger on his face, no challenge, just a calm, unshakable look that cut through the champagne bubbles and ego like a scalpel. "I heard you," he said simply. Then he disappeared below deck. The laughter died. Phones kept rolling. A few guests murmured, unsure if they were witnessing a prank or something they'd talk about for years. Preston shifted, awkwardly, his grin slipping into something tighter, colder. He tried to brush it off, but the moment had slipped from his fingers, and Elijah had slipped into the yacht's heart, quiet as a whisper. Something shifted in the air, an invisible pressure, as if everyone could feel that what had started as a throwaway joke had become something else entirely, something real. And no one, not even Preston Lock, knew what was about to happen next. The air changed the moment Elijah disappeared below deck. It wasn't just the silence, though, that hung thick as fog. It was something deeper. A slow realization crawling across the backs of the partygoers' necks that they'd just witnessed. A man step into a game he wasn't supposed to know how to play. A man who wasn't meant to matter. But who suddenly did. Preston Lock shifted uncomfortably. The smirk on his face had turned brittle. He took another sip of champagne to hide the tremble in his fingers. His guests, still holding phones aloft, waited for the punchline. Surely the dockhand would re-emerge in minutes, embarrassed, maybe soaked in seawater, muttering something about not being able to find the leak. That would be funny. That would restore balance. That would make sense. But minutes passed. 5, 10. No Elijah. Below deck, in the belly of the Larkspur, Elijah moved with silent precision. The engine room smelled of salt, oil, and ego. Gleaming pipes lined the walls, wires bundled neatly in ducts. But there was a kind of superficial polish to it all, like a suit tailored to distract from a sick body underneath. Elijah wasn't impressed. He saw past aesthetics. He crouched near the build system, his fingers brushing the floor where faint salt trails stained the metal. His eyes narrowed. There it was, not a gaping leak, not something obvious, but a subtle pressure imbalance in the auxiliary coolant line. It was cracked right at the junction, where the line met the inner seawater intake, invisible unless you knew how coolant condensation behaved in an engine this size, and he knew. He pulled a small pouch from the chest pocket of his coveralls tools he carried, not because he expected to use them, but because old habits from the Navy never left him. Within minutes, he'd isolated the pressure, sealed the crack with marine epoxy reinforced with a carbon patch, and stabilized the coolant flow. He tightened the clamps, reset the pump. A deep, rhythmic sound filled the yacht. Thup, 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 then a satisfying stillness. The bilge. Pump stopped. For the first time in days, the yacht wasn't taking on water. Elijah wiped his hands with the same cloth he'd been using on the sailboat earlier, tucked his tools away, and rose. The job was done, but something else tugged at him. Instinct. He scanned the compartment again, not for mechanical faults, but for irregularities in the structure. A thin seam in the bulkhead caught his attention. Too clean, too intentional. But he left it for now. One problem at a time. Above deck, the mood was shifting. The party had gone flat. Preston's guests murmured behind manicured hands. A few chuckled nervously, but more watched with uncertainty. Their phones were still filming, but now not for entertainment, for history. And then the hatch opened. Elijah emerged, calm, unhurried. He walked past the expensive couches, the gold thread cushions, and the tray of untouched shrimp cocktails. His eyes met Preston's. He held up the same cloth he'd started the day with, now stained with grease and salt. It's fixed, Elijah said, without triumph, just fact. A hush swept across the yacht. The guests stared. Someone dropped a flute of champagne. Preston forced a laugh, short, sharp, desperate. Wait, you're serious? You actually fixed it? Elijah gave a small nod. Your leak's been sealed. Bilge pump caught up, then shut down. You can verify the drop-in draw from the power readout near the helm. It's stable now. Preston's throat bobbed. His hand, still holding the glass, trembled slightly. That's not possible. We flew in engineers from Miami. They spent 3 days. They were looking in the wrong place, Elijah said. The blonde woman beside Preston whispered. He said you give him the yacht if he fixed it. That's what you said. The cameras were still rolling. Preston paled. That was a joke, he snapped, louder than he meant to. Obviously, Elijah turned, slowly descending the gangplank. His boots landed on the dock with the soft thud of finality. He didn't say another word. As he walked back toward the shadows of the marina, away from the lights, the music, and the polished people, the silence behind him was louder than any applause. Back on the yacht, Preston clutched his champagne glass. Like a lifeline, for the first time, he felt at the unease that came when power shifted in a way you didn't authorize. He could feel their eyes now, not laughing with him, not laughing at Elijah, just watching, calculating. And on the dock, Elijah didn't look back. He didn't have to, because something had cracked that night. Not just a pipe on a yacht, but an illusion, a system built on the belief that the man with the softest hands had the most authority. And a quiet Dockhand had just broken it, with a wrench and a calm nod. The storm didn't come from the sea. It came from the internet. By sunrise, the clip had traveled beyond Harborview Marina. A grainy, 7-second video. Preston Lock, standing like a golden god on the bow of the Larkspur, laughing as he declared, "Stop the damn leak and I'll give you the yacht." Then came the calm reply, the stranger stepping aboard, and finally, the quiet re-emergence with 4 words. It's fixed. It's done. No bragging. No theatrics. Just results. By noon, the video had 230,000 views. By nightfall, it was on morning talk shows. Elijah Carter's name wasn't in the title. Not yet. But in the comments, he had a name now. The Dockhand King. Yacht Whisperer. The man who made a billionaire swallow his words. Some thought it was fake, a stunt. Others began digging. Who was this man? No Instagram. No flashy lifestyle, just a few photos someone had pulled from a local marina newsletter, and a blurry LinkedIn page that said, Marine Systems Specialist, U.S. Navy 8 years. The internet wanted more. At Preston Lock, wanted silence. At the marina, Elijah returned to work like nothing had happened. He buffed rails, checked oil levels, refueled boats. But now, the silence around him wasn't indifference, it was tension. Dockhands watched him with new respect. Yacht owners eyed him with suspicion, confusion, some with guilt. The invisible man had become visible. That afternoon, Lena Thompson found him by the equipment shed. "Elijah," she said, out of breath and carrying a tablet. "You need to see this." She tapped the screen. It was a legal document, rough, hastily drafted. She swiped again. Preston Lock's video, time-stamped, transcribed. "That was a verbal contract," she said. "On camera, multiple witnesses. You accepted. You performed the task. This might actually hold up in court." "I'm not interested in lawsuits," Elijah said. "I didn't fix that yacht for ownership. I fixed it because it needed fixing." Lena frowned. "It doesn't matter what you intended. The law sees what it sees." As they talked, a black car pulled up at the end of the dock. Sleek, quiet, expensive. A man stepped out, gray suit, gray eyes, carrying a silver envelope like a scalpel. "Elijah Carter?" the man asked. His voice was polite, practiced, polished. Elijah didn't answer. "My name is Thomas Wells. I represent Mr. Lock." He held out the envelope, a gesture of appreciation. $20,000. No strings attached. Elijah didn't take it. Wells hesitated. "Consider it a goodwill payment for your time and, perhaps, your discretion." "You mean silence," Elijah said flatly. "Mr. Lock is a businessman," Wells replied smoothly. "A joke taken out of context, a video, and now a frenzy. You could stop it all with one public statement." Elijah looked at the envelope, then back at Wells. Then he turned away without a word. Wells stood for a moment, his mouth tight, then slid the envelope back into his jacket. "You're making a mistake," he said. "Preston Lock is not someone you want as an enemy." Elijah didn't turn around. He already made himself one. That night, Elijah returned to the small house he shared with his grandfather. The porch light flickered above the door. Inside, the familiar smell of old newspapers and lemon oil filled the air. His grandfather, Ben Carter, was sitting in his armchair, watching the news. "There he is," Ben said, pointing at the screen. "My boy, you're on Channel 8 now." Elijah gave a tired smile and sank into the couch. "You're a good man," Ben said, turning down the volume. "But good men make enemies when bad ones get embarrassed. You ready for that?" Elijah didn't answer right away. "He offered me money to walk away." Ben nodded. "He's scared." "Maybe he should be." "No," Ben said. "You don't need to scare anyone. That's not your way. You just keep standing up." "That's enough." Elijah leaned back, closing his eyes. But he didn't sleep well, because 2 hours later, someone broke into the house. It wasn't a robbery. Nothing was taken. Not the TV, not the old medals in the hallway. But every drawer had been opened, every photograph scattered, every memory violated. When Elijah found the mess, he didn't shout. He didn't call the police. He walked outside, stood on the porch, and looked out into the night. He knew this wasn't about the video anymore. Someone wanted to erase him before his name finished going viral, but they made a mistake. They didn't come for a Dockhand. They came for a sailor, a man who knew how to survive storms and how to fight in the dark. He went back inside and started making a list, not of enemies, not of revenge, of what needed fixing, because this time, the leak wasn't in a yacht. It was in a system, and Elijah Carter was going to seal it shut. The sky was still, almost eerily so. No breeze, no clouds, just heat pressing down on the marina like a clenched fist. The kind of weather that made old sailors murmur warnings about a storm that hadn't yet announced itself. But Elijah Carter already knew. The real storm had nothing to do with wind. It started that morning with a knock on the marina office door. Lena opened it and froze. Detective Ree Morgan stood in the doorway, badge clipped to her belt, her eyes hidden behind dark aviator sunglasses. She looked like someone who hadn't slept in 2 days and didn't plan to anytime soon. "I need to speak with Elijah Carter," she said. Elijah stepped forward without hesitation, wiping grease from his hands with an old towel. "That's me." Re-entered the office without waiting to be invited. She dropped a file on the desk. "That video of you fixing Lock's yacht? It wasn't just internet famous. It got flagged by an agency I won't name. Someone noticed a detail they've been watching for. She flipped the folder open. Elijah. Leaned in. Inside were satellite images of the Larkspur. Not just in harbor view, but docked off the coast of Antigua, Monaco, and a private port in the South China Sea. Each location was stamped with a date, each one matching a major offshore banking transfer. Flagged in an ongoing international investigation, Elijah's jaw tightened. You think the yacht's been moving dirty money? I don't think it, Ree said. I know it. We've been trying to link Preston Lock to an international laundering syndicate for months. But until now, we didn't have a reliable asset inside that yacht. You might be the key. Elijah sat back, rubbing his palms together slowly. I'm not a spy. I fix engines. I keep to myself. Not anymore, Ree said. Now the world's watching, and so are the people Preston works for. That afternoon, the Larkspur remained docked, but something about her had changed. No longer a symbol of effortless wealth, it now felt like a vault, a coffin of secrets floating in plain sight. Elijah stared at her from the dock. Every instinct screamed that danger was closer than anyone realized, not just to him but to everyone connected. And then, the storm hit. Not a metaphor, not a warning. A real storm. Tropical stormcade tore through the coast 2 days later, unexpected, rapid, violent. Marinas went on lockdown. Boats were either secured or evacuated. Most owners left days in advance, but Preston's crew did something else. They fueled the Larkspur. Elijah spotted it while securing another boat. 3 men in branded polos loading fuel drums, checking engine diagnostics, moving with quiet urgency. Not storm prep, escape prep. He stormed into the marine office. Lena looked up from a computer screen. They're trying to run, Elijah said. They're going to use the storm as cover. That's suicide, she said, in that vessel. In this weather, not if you're desperate enough. He called Detective Ree, voice sharp. They're about to leave. Tonight. We don't have a warrant, she said. Not yet. If you stop them, it's trespassing. But if you catch them in open water, you want me to chase a millionaire's yacht in a rescue boat? I want you to be very, very careful. That night, as lightning etched scars across the sky, Elijah stepped into the boathouse. He checked the fuel on the marina's smallest emergency rescue craft, barely 20 feet of fiberglass, and gritting launched into the Black Sea. Waves slapped the sides of his vessel like fists. Wind howled across the deck, but he kept his eyes fixed ahead, where the silhouette of the Larkspur moved slowly into open water, its sleek hull slicing the storm like it had done this before, like it had run before. Elijah's boat bobbed and bucked, waves slamming into it. His hands were white-knuckled on the wheel. Memory surged of another storm, years ago, in the Navy, an engine room flooding with salt and panic. He'd saved them then. He could do it again. He closed the distance. Just as another bolt of lightning split the sky, he saw the Larkspur's ladder dip low in the water. Elijah gritted his teeth, timed it perfectly, and jumped. The cold sea punched him in the ribs, but his hands found the rungs. He climbed, every movement drenched in salt, wind, and adrenaline. He crept along the deck. As thunder cracked above, through a cabin window, he saw Preston pacing, furious, panicked, holding a briefcase. Not clothes, not food. Just the case. Elijah slipped inside through a maintenance hatch. The smell of diesel and fear was thick. He crept down to the lower decks, to the place where he'd fixed the leak. He knew this boat now, knew its skeleton, its veins. The secret compartment he'd suspected earlier, he found it now. Open, empty. Preston had already retrieved whatever had been hidden there. And then a voice echoed behind him. You just couldn't leave it alone. Preston stood at the door, soaked, eyes wild, a flare gun in one hand and the briefcase in the other. Elijah stood slowly, turned the yacht around. Preston laughed, manic. We're in the middle of a storm, genius. There's no turning back. Elijah, step forward. You've run enough. You've stuck your nose where it doesn't belong. Do you have any idea who those documents tie me to? I don't care, Elijah said. But I know what I saw, and I know you're not walking away. The yacht pitched hard as a massive wave hit. Preston stumbled. Elijah charged. The flare gun fired a flash of red across the engine room. Missed. They crashed into each other. The case slid across the floor. Elijah wrestled Preston to the ground, dodging wild punches, ignoring the rain pouring down through the open hatch. He grabbed a loose line and tied Preston to a railing, the man screaming curses drowned by thunder. Then Elijah did what only he could. He took the wheel. The storm fought him every inch of the way. But the yacht responded. The engines groaned. The rudder creaked out, and then, out of the dark, a spotlight. A Coast Guard chopper hovered overhead. A voice boomed, "Larkspur, this is the United States Coast Guard. Heave to and prepare to be boarded." Elijah turned the yacht toward the beam of light. He didn't smile, didn't celebrate, but somewhere deep inside, he felt it, a turning, a reckoning, and Preston Lock, now tied to his own empire, had no choice but to watch it come. The next morning, the storm was gone, but its wreckage was everywhere. Palm fronds lay snapped across the marina roads. Power lines drooped like exhausted limbs. Docks had broken free in the night and floated crookedly, tangled in seaweed and rope. But amidst the chaos, the Larkspur stood still, tethered tightly, engine silent. Her sleek hull battered, but intact. Elijah Carter sat on the edge of the dock, soaked, bruised, but unbroken. His hands rested on his knees, his eyes locked on the rising sun. He hadn't slept, not after what he'd seen, not after what they'd found. Detective Ree Morgan stood beside him, arms crossed, a sealed evidence case at her feet. The dawn light glinted off the metal clasp, highlighting the label, "Classified, Interagency Transfer." "You realize what's inside that case will ignite hell," she said quietly. Elijah didn't answer. "I ran the serial number on the briefcase. It's linked to 6 flagged financial institutions, 3 shell companies across 5 countries, and to encrypted flash drives that we can't crack yet." "Then crack them," Elijah replied. His voice was low, steady. Ree crouched beside him. "We will. But we're not the only ones looking. You've kicked something loose, Carter, something dangerous." Preston Lock was never the mastermind. He was a delivery boy with a Rolex and a yacht full of secrets. And now he's sitting in a federal holding cell. But his silence won't last. Not when he realizes the people he worked for think he talked. Elijah turned to her. "Then we talk first." Later that morning, the Larkspur was cordoned off with yellow crime scene tape. Federal agents moved in and out of the vessel like surgeons performing an autopsy. The press circled like vultures, their vans parked along the marina road. Satellite dishes pointed skyward. Headlines had already begun rolling in. "The yacht that broke the billionaire. Dockhand turned hero. What Elijah Carter found below deck." Preston Lock's empire unravels in the wake of leaked evidence. But the public didn't know the half of it. Inside the yacht's secret compartment, beneath a panel in the engine room Elijah had discovered during the storm, the feds had found a second case, smaller, colder. It held a burner phone, foreign currency from 6 nations, and documents, real names, aliases, transaction codes. And one small black notebook dot. Inside the notebook were initials, dates, coordinates. At first glance, it looked like nothing, but as Lena pieced together the codes, it became clear. It was a ledger, a record of pickups and drops, transfers at sea, quiet deals, never meant to see the light of day. "These aren't just banking codes," Lena whispered, her face pale under the cabin lights. "These are locations, times, names of naval patrol sectors." "Elijah, some of these match schedules. From the 7th Fleet." He didn't blink. "Espionage," Lena nodded slowly. "At worst, someone was moving more than money through international waters. This yacht wasn't a toy. It was a courier." They turned everything over to Ree, and then the threats began, not from Preston, from the ones above him. That night, as Elijah returned home, he found his front door ajar again. But this time, nothing was missing. Nothing was overturned. Just a single item left on the kitchen table, a bullet, placed carefully in the center of a folded napkin. Beside it, a scrap of paper with 2 words written in block letters, "Stay silent, Ben." Carter sat in his armchair in the living room, silent but not afraid. "They came back," he said. Elijah nodded. "I didn't see their faces," Ben added, "but I felt something in the air. The kind of quiet that comes before something breaks." Elijah sat across from him, hands trembling only slightly. "They're watching us now." "No," Ben corrected. "They're watching you because they know you're not afraid of them. That makes you dangerous." Elijah exhaled, steady, his breath. "I never wanted this." "I know," Ben said softly. "But sometimes the ones who don't want the fight are the best ones to finish it." The next day, Elijah and Lena met Ree in a secured government building. There were men in dark suits, women with briefcases sealed with tamper tabs. A panel of federal investigators had been convened, and sitting at the far end of the long table was a man Elijah didn't recognize. He wore a muted gray tie, his eyes cold and calculating. "This is Director Graham," Ree said. He's been briefed. Graham spoke with clipped precision. Mr. Carter, you've exposed a channel used by foreign operatives to move assets through international waters. We believe Mr. Lock worked under a network tied to Valen Cross. Elijah frowned. Never heard the name. You wouldn't have. That's the point. The director tapped the folder in front of him. This goes higher than you can imagine. Corporate black sites, contract assassinations, political laundering. The leak you fixed was the first crack in a hole that was carrying something far more dangerous than water. Lena leaned forward. What do you want from us? Graham didn't blink. Discretion, patience, time, no deals? Elijah asked. You already made one the night you boarded that yacht. That afternoon, back at the marina, Preston Lock was escorted from the Larkspur in cuffs. He wore a paper suit. His eyes ringed with exhaustion and fear. His smirk was gone. Cameras flashed as he was loaded into an armored vehicle. One reporter shouted, Mr. Lock, anything to say about Elijah Carter? Preston paused. He looked toward the dock where Elijah stood, arms folded, watching. Then he spoke, voice hollow. I never should have dared him. By evening, the sun dipped low again, throwing long shadows over the dock. Lena stood beside Elijah. As they stared at the now abandoned yacht, you realize they'll never let this go, she said. I'm counting on it, he replied. And then, quietly, the marina lights flickered on one by one, a quiet chorus of normal life returning, boats rocking gently, children laughing in the distance, and somewhere behind them, the quiet sound of repair tools beginning again. But this time, Elijah wasn't fixing boats for the wealthy. He was repairing something bigger, something broken in the heart of the system, and the next chapter was only just beginning. The stars blinked above the marina like watchful eyes, calm and clear, as if mocking the chaos that had passed just nights before. The wind had softened. The waves, once monstrous and angry, now lapped gently against the docked hulls. But beneath the surface of this coastal quiet, war drums were still beating, just silent ones. Elijah Carter stood atop the Larkspur, now stripped of luxury pillows, emptied of its fine liquors, its once gaudy gold fixtures dulled by rain and time. The yacht had become something else entirely, no longer a symbol of flaunted wealth. It was now a crime scene, a warship in disguise, a coffin full of secrets, and Elijah knew every bolt of it. Inside, beneath the deck, where he once passed a leak, another compartment had been discovered. Hidden beneath electrical panels and ductwork, it wasn't listed on any blueprint. Federal agents, handpicked and sworn to secrecy, had worked 16-hour shifts scanning every inch. In that second compartment, they had found what we called the game changer. Not cash, not diamonds. Data. Physical hard drives with encryption so advanced that it stumped Homeland Security's cyber division. A name surfaced on one of the drive's recovery protocols, Valen Cross. Ree hadn't flinched when Elijah asked, who is he? Not a who, she said, a shadow. He doesn't run criminal networks, he builds them. Offshore accounts, proxy, servers, logistics for arms deals and intelligence operations. He launders money for people who don't exist. If this boat was his tool, Preston Lock wasn't just a lackey. He was the decoy, the fall guy. Elijah exhaled slowly, watching the night press itself across the marina like ink. So he's still out there, Ree nodded, and now he knows your name. That reality sat with Elijah as he walked the decks alone that night. A part of him wanted to leave the marina, sell the boat, disappear, but every time he pictured it, he saw the faces of the people he worked beside. James, who still called him captain with half a grin, Lena, who'd given up a stable job to stand beside him through the fire, and his grandfather, whose house still bore the scars of the first warning. He couldn't run. He wouldn't. Instead, he made a plan. The next morning, Elijah called a meeting on the dock. Crew, former dockhands, Lena, even Walter the Marina's owner all gathered around. I've been offered protection, Elijah said. A new identity, safe relocation, witness programs. Are you taking it? Lena asked. He shook his head. No, I'm staying, but not just to fight, to build. We've spent too long letting people like Preston own the water. That ends today. From the briefcase retrieved that stormy night, he pulled out the Larkspur's fraudulent title nullified by the state and a newly issued deed. I now legally own this yacht, and I'm renaming it. He turned toward the stern. A fresh coat of dark blue had replaced the former gold-trimmed nameplate. The new lettering gleamed in the sunlight. The Phoenix. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Lena's eyes filled with Tears, Elijah, she whispered. This boat started as a dare, he said. Then it became a battleground. But now, it's a home, a business, a community. He turned toward the people gathered. I'm not running yachts for billionaires. I'm launching a charter business for the public, tours, lessons, second chances, and anyone who helped fix this boat owns a share, including every one of you who stayed. The marina erupted in cheers. Weeks passed, then months. The Phoenix began her new life sailing school groups through the bay, hosting marine biology research students, and even holding veterans PTSD retreats. She was no longer just a boat. She was a symbol of what could rise from wreckage. But Elijah's peace didn't last out one afternoon. Lena rushed aboard, pale and shaking. Elijah, she said breathlessly, he's here. Elijah followed her off the boat to find a man standing on the dock. Not flashy, not loud, dressed in tailored gray, wearing thin leather gloves, posture military. His hair was silver, but not with age, with calculation. Elijah Carter, he said. His voice was smooth as polished steel. My name is Thomas Sinclair. I represent interests with a stake in the files you recently uncovered. Elijah said nothing. Sinclair continued, Mr. Cross has no desire for revenge. He offers resolution, compensation for your discretion, a private island, a clean ledger, no strings, no threats. You think I'd sell out? Elijah asked, stepping closer. I think you want peace, Sinclair said. A peace often requires silence. Elijah's jaw tensed. Tell your boss I don't scare easy. No, Sinclair replied, but everyone has something to lose, and Cross doesn't aim for you. He aims around you. That night, Elijah found his grandfather's photo nailed to the Phoenix's mast, a bullet hole through the center. The message was clear. And so was Elijah's answer. He contacted Ree. If Cross wants a war, he said, let's give him one. The next 48 hours blurred into motion briefings. Secure files passed hand to hand. Media staged to release public-facing reports. The evidence from the Phoenix, now cleared for national release, was handed over to the press. Elijah didn't hide this time. He held a press conference. This yacht was built on corruption, he said, standing on the deck before a sea of cameras. It was run by a man who thought no one would challenge him. But I did. Not because I'm brave, but because I was tired. Tired of people thinking silence equals weakness. It doesn't. And to those still watching, he looked dead into the lens. I see you. You're next within days. Global financial institutions froze 10 accounts tied to Valen Cross. Several shell companies went dark. Interpol opened an investigation. Offshore assets began to vanish. And one morning, Elijah found a single envelope at the bow of the Phoenix. Inside, a white chess pawn. No message. No threats. Just acknowledgement. A silent hand moving to the next piece. But Elijah smiled, because pawns become queens, and some boats become battleships. He stood at the helm as the Phoenix pushed out into open water. Lena beside him, his crew ready, and as the wind filled her sails and the dock slipped behind them, he realized he hadn't just stopped a leak. He'd started a revolution. And no storm, no millionaire, no shadow operative would ever take that away.